everyone. So I'm just waiting to go grab the kids from the airport. One of their flights was delayed, I guess. The airplane just was sitting there for about an hour. So I will be picking them up very late. And I just kind of wanted to go over what we do, like as far as flights and how we handle all that type of stuff with the kids, being that they do go visit their dad a few times a year. Not generally, I think always, we have flown them when they go by themselves and not with us. Southwest. The reason we do Southwest is because they're very lenient on the kids from a very young age. So when they're, I think it's like 12 and below, you do have to pay an unaccompanied minor fee, but their rules are very lenient compared to other airlines. So since they were, I don't know, 5 and 7 or whatever age they started flying, we always flew them Southwest because of that. Now that Caden's 12, well, he's technically 13 now, and Mariah is soon to be 16, we don't pay any unaccompanied minor fees. So there are some rules, but it's like a lot easier now. We can pick connecting flights and those types of things. For Caden, we tried not to pick a connecting flight, which we didn't get a connecting flight just because he's not super familiar with doing it by himself because he usually has Mariah with him. So Caden's been gone since I think like July 2nd or something, 1st, I don't know, since the beginning of July. Mariah's been gone since about July 13th because she had a camp she had to go to, so they've been gone for quite a while, and we're ready for them to be home. School starts next week, so we'll talk more about that. But other things with the flight, like I said, if Caden's gonna fly alone for now until he gets, I know that he's going to make it from one spot to another and know what to do if something happens, we'll probably fly him direct. That only works so depending on where their dad lives at the time and where we live. Because sometimes, like when we lived in Kansas, there's not always direct flights to where they may live. But luckily, there is a direct flight from here to another state nearby, and they probably only drive an extra 40 minutes to get there. So it's just safer for the kids to fly direct if possible, but generally when Mariah's with them, they have a connecting flight because it's kind of harder to find a direct flight and then their dad has to drive a little further or whatever. That's kind of how we do that. I generally send them with a little bit of money because you never know if something's going to happen and a flight gets delayed for 10 hours and they're stuck at the airport. Cross our fingers, we haven't experienced that yet, but it makes me really nervous. That's why I would prefer to do a direct flight, even if it costs a little more and I had to drive a little more. But we're kind of not really in agreement with that. So at this time, if Mariah's with them, then we're flying them and they're going to have stops. Again, if you could, I would say go ahead. If it's just another 30-minute drive or so, 40 minutes, fly them direct, because more so like probably in the winter, if you're living in an area where there's really cold, snow, those types of things. Because think if your kid's stuck at the airport and their flight's delayed for 24 hours, they can't really go check into a hotel. I've had the suggestion of maybe they could go to the USO because they do have military IDs. But I know some USOs will only let you in if you're with an active duty person. But even the USOs isn't a sure thing because they close at like 9, 10. They're not open all night long. So it's not like the kids can go in there and rest and sleep. They're literally going to have to sleep in the airport. And if your kids aren't military, then they absolutely really don't have anywhere to go. I would suggest if that ever did happen, think about somebody that lives nearby. If it's going to be a big delay, maybe they could come pick them up. Because when they get older and they can have stops, they're not picky about who picks up the kids. I just go. My kids are usually outside and I pick them up. Now, when they're younger, they can't have any stops in between because they're unaccompanied minors. They'll have someone with them and they'll check your ID or whoever the pickup person is. So they will check your ID and make sure that you're the parent supposed to pick them up in case a 5-year-old accidentally goes with the wrong parent. So at this age, again, my kids have no unaccompanied minor fee, meaning they're pretty much on their own on the airplane. They don't get any special treatment. If they're lost or something happens, delayed, it's just like you and I flying, an adult flying on an airplane. So it kind of does worry me, but we've been doing this for quite a while. We haven't had any, I guess, major issues. Usually the issues pop up beforehand and they'll say, hey, your flight has just been canceled or it's delayed or whatever, and then we'll hang out at the airport with them. I personally wait at the airport to make sure their flight leaves and everything. then again, once they're to that next state, you just hope nothing happens. Like tonight, they're just sitting there, but it's not delayed, thank God. They're just sitting and not moving. I think they are finally off though. So that's what we do with that. As far as costs, I think the kids fly out there at least 2 times a year, around Christmas time and then summer, and then like every other spring break, because that's just how our parenting plan is. With that being said, we kind of like split the costs, but it's really up to whatever your parenting agreement is. I would suggest if you have a family member or the other half is in the military, that you do get in your documentation though that something about like if they were to move overseas, because I'm telling you, the overseas flights are crazy expensive, and you got to think you're always flying during a holiday, during summer, so you're always flying at peak times. It's already going to be expensive just to fly within the United States. But if someone moves outside of the United States, not only is it scary to send your kid over there, I've had to send the kids to Hawaii several times. It's really expensive even when you're sharing the cost. So that's definitely something to think about when you're thinking about one where maybe you might move. Like moving to Texas was actually a pretty good move for us because there's airports closer by to where when we lived in Kansas, we had to drive a good 3 hours to make it to a flight. And a lot of times the flights would leave early in the morning or whatever. So we'd have to spend the night in a hotel, and that's just extra cost. And that's not split according to our agreement when we have to stay in a hotel or whatever to leave out the next day. Usually we'd make a little trip of it. We'd go shopping or do something fun while we were there. But here it's a lot easier. We're less than an hour away. If there's no traffic, we're probably 40 minutes away from the airport we take them to. But we're close to a couple airports here. So that really does help, to where if we were obviously 3 hours away from a main airport, that was no fun to do, especially when there's snow and different things like that, and it's not fun. Other than that, I would say if you do have small kids, pack them snacks, but generally Southwest loaded my kids up with snacks when they were younger and unaccompanied minors. You have to pay extra, but they treated the kids pretty good, and they gave them however many drinks they wanted, and they always came home with like all this extra stuff. I would still, though, just in case, because you never know, especially if maybe you're flying a different airline, because it is potential you could find an airline that has lenient rules. But like I said, sorry, my finger's in the way. I think that Southwest truly is, and their dad and I have both done research on it and looked into different things, and we just can't find an airline that really competes with them as far as their rules and like everything. Because when you add on an unaccompanied minor, generally it's depending on the airline. Some of them will charge you more, but it's like $50 each way per kid. So that's an extra $100 for one kid, and then an extra $100 for, so that's $200 extra off the bat on top of your already expensive flight, because it's during the holiday season or during summer or peak time. To keep in mind, always send them with like books or I don't know, whatever they have, coloring crayons, iPads, something to keep them entertained while they are on the plane, because they're not going to sit there and entertain your child the whole time, even if they're 6-7 years old. If you have kids that are maybe like ADHD or something like that and they are on medication, I would say definitely give them medication before they go, because if, from what I understand, if the kids don't behave and it doesn't work out, they're not able to go do that again with the same airline. So then you'd have to find a new airline and such, unless something changed with the child. And plus, it is kind of probably scary for any small child to be flying on an airplane by themselves. So that's something to consider. Other than that, I think we kind of pack light. They usually have most of their stuff at their dad's, and we don't want to put stuff under the plane and have them go and worry about all of that extra stuff. So they just do, like Mariah does a purse and a carry-on. Caden will do like a backpack. Just keep it light and simple, because it's just a lot for them if they're going to have stops to lug around. Other than that, I would say make sure there's enough time in between flights. So don't schedule them a flight that is say a 5-minute layover because you can't even get from point A to point B in that amount of time. So think about that when you're scheduling with kids, because they may have to stop and say, hey, like I even have to stop and say, hey, like what train, or like Atlanta, oh, I hate that airport. There's just certain airports that are not very easy to navigate. So I would always say make sure that there's not a huge layover, because you don't want them there all day, but a layover to where they have time to get from point A to point B. And also flights are late. So, you know, if their flight's 10 minutes late and they only had 30 minutes to get there, it's a huge airport, you're kind of out of luck. That's about it. So I'm going to leave here shortly and go grab the kids. They'll be back. This is our current situation. We are sitting here waiting in the dark parking garage for the kids because their flight is delayed or something, and it should have been here, but it's not. So hopefully it'll be here soon, because it's hot and Dallas is kind of a creepy place. What?
Yes.
Can we start driving around? It's hot. It's almost midnight, and we're probably 45 minutes from home, at least. We're just leaving the parking garage. We gotta still go get the kids. There they are. We're tired. I'm grumpy. Ooh.
1 hour. Wait, 2 hours.
There's Kaden, 2 hours late. There's Mariah.
I watched the whole entire movie while we were waiting.
And here's our time. Now we're on our way home from Dallas. No more late night flights, because this is not cool. Dallas is not really a place you want to be late at night anyway. Uh-oh, Snickers is... When Snickers gets too excited, she starts choking. Or whatever that is. Coughing. And Riley just, he's kind of too big to do much, but he just clicks around. Riley, are you excited to see them? Riley's like, wait a second, do I smell another dog on you? Have you been messing around?